Humanity Matters.
Hi, my name is Adi. I'm the hostess for today's part 2 of Doing Good, Doing Evil. With me once again is my dear father, Dr. Kenneth Bigel, professor once again of finance and business ethics at Touro University. Hi.
Hi,
Hello
Adi.
again.
Hi.
Okay, I guess we don't have to say how are you and all that, so let's just jump right into it. In our part 1, we spoke about commandments and not just the 613, but why it is so important that we keep those commandments. We also briefly mentioned rituals. I just wanted to go back into that and discuss a little bit more about the ritualistic side of Judaism.
Okay, great. So there's an interesting instruction given to judges who are adjudicating a capital crime. This comes from the Talmud in the tractate of Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin has to do with courts and the court system in Jewish law. And the judge and the witnesses are warned to be truthful and accurate when adjudicating a capital crime such as murder. And the reason that they're supposed to give the witnesses has to do with the fact that a capital crime is punishable by death. In Judaism, there are 4 means of carrying out the death sentence. But the important thing is that you murder somebody, you're found guilty, you lose your life. Measure for measure. You took a life, you lose your life. And the basis of the warning is that when you're taking a person's life, you're not only putting that person to death, but you're potentially putting to death the entire chain of descendants that person would have otherwise produced had he lived. Right. That's in the tractate of Sanhedrin. Elsewhere in the Talmud, it says, let me see if I can find it. I brought the quote. It says in Kiddushin that he who saves, that's another tractate in the Talmud, it says whoever saves a life, it is as if they saved an entire world.
Right.
One life is worth an entire world. So another point is that when you look at the book of Genesis and the story of creation, this all ties together. And you look at the story of creation. All the animals, the fish and the land dwellers, they were all made in multiple units.
Right.
Many, many animals, many, many fish. But when it came to making man, God made only one man.
Right.
And so Rashi, famous French exegete, biblical commentator from Provence, France in the 11th century, said that this is strange. And the purpose of making man only in one unit, Adam and Eve, was to impress upon us 2 things. One is, explicitly, he says, one is the preciousness of human life. And he says, paraphrasing the words of Tractate Kiddushin, he says that one life is worth an entire world. But also, to me, it seems quite obvious that there's another reason for man being made in singly, and that is that all humanity came from one man. One man and one woman. We all came from one man and one woman. And therefore, regardless of who you are, what your ethnicity is, what your race is, your religion, your national origin, etc., etc., we are all descendants of the same person, and we are all therefore equal in God's eyes. That's a very, very important principle for us to keep in mind all the time. We are all equal. And that, in a large sense, also is inscribed in our American system. We all know that we are all created equal.
Well, yeah.
And we all have the same rights, unalienable rights, namely life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? Where does that come from? That comes from the Bible. And so I've been trying to, in these podcasts, I've been trying to make the point that Judaism is a religion of morality,
Right.
first at its core, that has had profound influences on other religions, in particular Christianity and Islam, and is also at the root of our American Judeo-Christian ethos.
Yeah.
It's who we are as Americans. And we need to keep that in mind. These are extremely important principles.
Yeah, I agree. Going into how Judaism plays in, what is, we talked about in part one, the importance of doing good. And we even just now mentioned how, one person's life is worth an entire world. What is the macro impact of one person doing good?
There's a ripple effect. If you do good, it's not just an act in isolation. It spreads. It's kind of like karma.
Yeah.
I always believed in karma, not in a spooky way, but in a fundamental social way.
Right.
If I do something good for you, you may not reward me for it. I did you a favor. I did something good. But if I make a habit of doing those things, somehow or other, not in a spooky way, it'll redound to my benefit from some other person who might be a complete stranger to me.
Right.
Aristotle, in his Ethics, a book called Nicomachean Ethics, named after his father, emphasized habit, that we need to develop habits, and particularly from an early age, that can be acquired from your parents, from your education, but you need to acquire good habits. Not only moral habits, but you need to not overeat and not starve yourself and things like that. And a good person emits vibes.
Right.
It's
as
an
Gen
aura.
Z,
Yeah.
Gen Z says.
Okay, great. Has an aura that it's kind of like like when you throw a rock, when you skim a rock on water, it has a ripple
bounces,
effect,
yeah.
and you don't see it. You don't see this aura from that person, but it's palpable.
Yeah.
People know that another person is a good person or not so good a person.
Right.
I can remember just when I was in graduate school, when I was in business school many years ago, one of our classmates was a guy that was that we all knew was going to do something wrong in the future because he had questionable morals.
Yeah.
And he did. He went to jail for right for a white collar crime.
Okay.
Some years later. So
Yeah.
do good.
Yeah. It's like they say, you can tell how a person, the mood of a person or how a person is feeling once they walk in a room. You mentioned, somebody lights up the room. There's also the opposite. It is quite interesting that even though there's no scientific or physical, explanation, it still is something that everybody experiences and everybody feels. Or when you say, look into the eyes, of a person. You can
Right.
see it's the window to the soul. You don't know
So
what
true.
the soul is, but you can see when I look into your eyes, Dad. I see a good person.
Thank you. I see a good person when I look at you too.
Thank you. All right, let's go into.
You can sometimes even see that from a photograph.
Yes, I agree.
It's almost like Einstein talked about 4 dimensions, time being the 4th dimension.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's another dimension in human life. Even animals can pick up kindness.
Yeah.
From people.
Yeah, there's videos of animals, specific. I mean, I'm thinking of like turtles and different sea animals that are caught in nets and fishing gear or whatever it is that go completely still when a human comes to help them. It's like they can sense that we're doing something good for them, that we're not there to harm them, even though humans are generally harming.
I don't remember exactly where I saw this, but on television there was a story about a man who raised wild animals from their. Did you see it?
Yeah, I have.
From when they were puppies, and they went back to the jungles in Africa to look for these animals. And in one case, they found a gorilla. In another case, they found a lion who was raised as a cub by this person. A lion.
Right.
And a lion's a scary animal, and you could see on the video that the lion raced after the person, and this huge animal got up and on its hind legs. You saw it, and hugged the person, and you could see that the lion was smiling. You could see it. You could see it's just amazing. And so I don't know. Maybe it's the 5th dimension.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think most of these things are yet to be explained by science, but you hear this. It makes it almost more believable when you hear the story of Noah and the boat. I just call it the boat, where all these animals got together and they didn't eat each other because, they knew that they had a mission, right? They knew that this isn't good for the moment, even though in general, there's predators and prey, and most lions don't necessarily get along with humans, things like that.
I hadn't thought of that. Noah's Ark, all the animals, they didn't eat each other.
They didn't eat each other. They
didn't fight.
They hung out,
Yeah. Imagine managing that. Feeding the animals and all that, and everything was peaceful for
what we know.
As far as we know,
maybe I had to break up a few fights.
Maybe so.
But getting back into it, we see, a lot of criticism today about religion in general is, I guess, on a decline. I'll say that in quotes because we're seeing that, we have record lows in people that attend their holy spaces, whether it be a synagogue or a church or whatever the space is for whichever religion. So first of all, we can mention that this is just I don't know if this is just a trend that goes, we see in time, things go up and down, kind of like a NASDAQ chart. It's a
stock market.
And this is definitely a trend that you can see also even 100 years ago with the time of the Holocaust. After the Holocaust, we saw a record decline and then things picked back up. So whether or not, we view it as, this is just something that's going on, that, we also at the same time see, an uptick in criticism against religions. We are seeing a lot of a lot of Jews that are coming out in bad light in Hollywood and elsewhere. We're seeing a lot of, from every religion we see things. We're seeing extremism all over the world, whether it be, for a religion or the opposite. And so then it comes down into we spoke about how Judaism is a religion of morals and of rituals, and that kind of piques my interest into sinning, right? We do bad things. We are human. How do we get out of that? How do we go back towards the right path? And how do we view ourselves as Jews with sinning?
That's a very large question. So let's try to categorize it. One is, how do we view ourselves as Jews? And I think the other part is, and help me with this, has to do with how the world views us.
Yes.
and what's going on in the world. Why is so many bad things happen? So those are three things.
Yes.
Help me remember the three
Okay.
things. The first thing is, how do we view ourselves as Jews? Let's stipulate, as I've been trying to make the case already, that Judaism at its core is a system of morality rather than law only. In fact, the purpose of the law and ritual is to bring us closer to God, and therefore, given that we're made in God's image, to do good, to do the right thing all the time. Let's stipulate that. But we as Jews in our literature, from the Pentateuch through the end of the Bible, through the prophets, have always been, through the written word, have been very, very critical of ourselves. We were, according to our beliefs, we were intended, this is in the Pentateuch, God intended us. What does it mean to be the chosen people? God intended for us to be Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Well, what does that mean? Isaiah amplifies that a little bit. It's simply by referring to us as Or Lagoyim, a light unto the nations. Why did God give us 613 commandments and then tell us to do the right and the good, the straight and the good, after all that stuff? He wanted to elevate the Jewish people by giving us all these commandments and requiring rituals of us. The nations, non-Jewish people, were commanded, according to Jewish tradition, to observe only 7 commandments, the Noahide laws. And by the way, there's a group of Noahides in the United States. I think they're in Tennessee. And they observe the 7 Noahide laws. They don't have 613.
Right.
They just have 7.
Right.
And just to get them out, the 7 are belief in one God, commandment not to blaspheme or to practice idolatry, not to murder, not to steal, not to engage in illicit sex, to create a system of courts, and not to bear false testimony in the courts, and not to eat a limb from a living system. According to Jewish belief, if a non-Jew observes those 7 commandments, he or she earns the right to enter the world to come, paradise.
Right.
Jews have a higher burden.
Yeah.
Because presumably, the way I see it, God chose us to be a light unto the nations. Well, that's really a burden. If you're a non-Jew and you want to convert to Judaism, an Orthodox rabbi will try to dissuade you.
Right.
He'll tell you what, he'll say,
Why do you
it's
want
not
this?
a good, what do you want this? It's such a pain.
Right.
It's such a burden that it's hard being Schwer zu sein a Yid, they say in Yiddish, right? It's hard being a Jew.
Yeah.
It's not easy to be a Jew. It's not easy to observe all these commandments.
Right. And then do good.
And then on top of that, to do the straight and the good.
Right.
Right? It's really very, very hard. And I think this is the second point. We, in our sacred literature, view ourselves very, very negatively. It's such a Jewish trait.
I know.
To be self-critical and to say, oy vey, look at what we're doing. We're, this and that. And our prophets say that.
Yeah.
So, for example, I brought a few quotes. Isaiah says in chapter 1, verse 4, he says, "O sinful nation, a people weighed down by iniquity, offspring of evildoers, children who deal corruptly." And Isaiah was known to be pretty easy among the 3 prophets. The 3 prophets in the Bible, after the book of Kings, you have the 3 prophets. You have Jeremiah, who's really a tough guy. He, the word Jeremiad, which is a rant, comes from his name. Followed by Ezekiel, who starts off pretty rough and then is more consoling, I should say. Right. And then the third is Isaiah, who's pretty easy. But still, look at the quote that I just
Right.
gave from Isaiah. It's very, very critical.
Right.
Jeremiah in 4:22 says, "My people are fools. They do not know me. They are senseless children. They have no understanding. They are skilled in doing evil. They know not how to," magic words, "do good." Right? They know not how to do good. And Isaiah, again, just another quote from Isaiah, right? Because we have all these rituals,
Right.
right? And I've been trying to make the case that rituals alone are insufficient.
Right.
Right? The purpose of rituals is to bring us closer to God, but rituals without sincerity
Right.
are not very worthwhile. God wants us to do rituals, not for him,
But for us.
but for us.
Right.
And so Isaiah says, "The multitude of your this is starts in chapter 1, verse 11. There's a few verses. The multitude of your sacrifices, what are they to me, says the Lord? I have more than enough of burnt offerings, of rams, and the fat of fattened animals. I have no pleasure in the blood of bulls and lambs and goats. Stop bringing meaningless offerings. Your incense is detestable to me. Take your evil deeds out of my sight. Stop doing wrong. Learn to do right. Seek justice. Defend the oppressed. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Plead the case of the widow." He says, seek justice.
Right.
And he's not the first guy in the Bible, Jewish Bible, to talk about justice. In the Pentateuch, famously, I know you know this verse, right? Tzedek, tzedek tirdof.
Yeah.
Justice, justice shall you pursue.
Yeah.
Justice is such an important concept that the word justice in this verse had to be said twice.
Right.
And yet later on, the Jewish people forgot these things. So Ezekiel emphasized the importance of ritual. And I think now getting back to the world,
Right.
which I think is the third point I'm
Yes.
supposed to talk about, right? Getting back to the world, there's absolutely, especially in America, but in Europe also, I think, there's a decline in religion. Now, I'm not going to preach that everybody has to go out and observe the Sabbath and don phylactery. The men should don phylacteries every morning. I'm not going to preach that.
Right.
But I think there's a relationship between the decline of religion and religious practice and ritual and morality.
Yeah.
And
They say the happiest people, there was a study, I don't know how long ago this was. I learned about it in college just a few years ago. But the happiest, most content people in the United States were the Orthodox Jews living in, Brooklyn or in Muncie or whatever it is. And I think there's something to learn from that. When you come to terms and are at peace and follow with true good intentions, good, right? Justice.
Good follows.
Yes. Good follows, just like you said. Gen Z says manifestation. You put out to the world what you want to come back to you.
Religion gives these Orthodox Jews not only structure,
Yeah.
but it gives them meaning.
Yeah.
And when your eyes are turned toward God, your eyes at the same time are turned to your fellow man.
Yeah.
At the same time. So earlier we talked about how saving a life, one life, saves the whole world. I think that's true also for morality.
Yeah.
And we talked about karma. And what was the word that you used instead of karma? You used something, manifestation.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very real thing. And one of the most moving scenes in all of movies, for me at least, was in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
It brings tears to my eyes just to think of it.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the movie, Liam Neeson, who plays Oscar Schindler, breaks down.
Right.
And the war's over. All these Jews are in front of him, thanking him for saving their lives. And he says, I failed. I could have and I should have done more. And the Jewish leader, played by Ben Kingsley, said to him, no, you did great.
Right.
Look what you did. Look at all these people that you saved. And then very quickly, the movie shifts to the real Schindler people,
right,
who visit his grave in Israel. Right? He's buried in Israel in the Catholic cemetery on the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, Israel. The survivors and their children and their grandchildren all visit him. And as Jews are prone to do, we don't put flowers on
graves,
on tombstones, on graves. We put stones to mark that we were there and visited them. They each march up. They put a stone on his tombstone.
Right.
And the message is that this man didn't save just
X amount.
the lives that were the people that worked in his factory making bullets that didn't shoot.
Right.
But he saved multiple people.
Yeah.
Children and grandchildren. And so it is for morality also.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea of manifestation.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. So I'm going to say thank you for having me.
Thank you, Adi, for...
Thank you for enlightening this enlightening conversation. I appreciate it. And I look forward to our conversations for the rest of the day.
Right. I hope going forward, I hope to talk about wealth and charity. So everybody stay tuned. And I think we owe thanks to the listening audience.
Yes. Thank you very much.